Good evening, good morning to those in Europe, and welcome, welcome. This is, of course, Lily Kolosova, and today is, of course, time for my mystery school to be open today. So, welcome, everyone. Welcome, Ramus. Thank you so much for being here. All right. We are going to be talking today about, because I started talking last time on Sunday, on Venus Sunday. So welcome everyone. So since I started talking about quantum equilibrium, I figured that today I will mostly focus on sort of our willpower, or our intuition and willpower. So I will focus out of the three centers. I will kind of focus on our gut center today because it's our the most important, because it has a lot to do with our spiritual infection as well. So for us here, as those of us that are Hayokas, you understand your path in here, and you understand what it is that you're here to do in order to sort of close the cycle for your ancestors. So, like I like to mention, that you are here incarnated on behalf of your ancestors. So, this is why it is for Hayokas, or for um, the tribe, or your tribe of people, which is the rainbow tribe. And this is why I want to talk today in more simple kind of like terms, and that's why I do enjoy Native Americans or Dene terms for things that kind of symbols and things of that nature, because even when you look at Native American symbology, it is very simple, and a lot of the symbology is explained through the stories that Native Americans tell their children. And so the reason I relate to that, because in my culture, where I grew up, this is kind of similar things. When we were kids, the babushkas tell you all these kinds of stories to introduce you into this world as an innocent child, because as a like umbrella, you guys, those of you that respect the Spanish language, right? There is there is a certain age that that you reach, which we call a wisdom age, right? So this is why I titled today things in a way to where I want to bring it down to everyday life. How does it apply to us in everyday life? Because I don't want to sit here and talk about something that is useless. What I want to talk about is something that each and every one of you that spends your time listening to these videos can then get something out of these conversations, to where you can apply to your own experiences, and then you can cultivate that power within. Because ultimately, for last 10 years, everything I do in public, it is always directed towards that way, to direct collective human consciousness into that level of sort of growth or quantum leap, to what I talk about. We have to leap in consciousness in order to evolve into the future. And this is why we stand here as the warriors, as I used to call us, because we have to fight the spiritual war here. And so this is why I come back and I say certain things, right? That we can go back in each and every one of us in our cultures. We can sort of, through our own sort of DNA, exploring your own DNA, because this is what ultimately my goal is, to get everyone to go and take that eternal internal path. Um, of returning to source. Okay, and so this is ultimately what I think, why I have to speak about things that I go individually through in public right here and share it with those, because my intent is so for those of you that went through similar experiences then can cultivate your experiences in order to move forward and advance in that quantum leap, so to speak. So here's to all of you. And I know that I call heyokas. Heyokas are simply those that have full spectrum of emotions available to them. And that's all there is to it. And in order to master this reality, this is what we need to master, is we need to master our emotions, because this is how we create. So here's to all of you heyokas out there that mastering yourselves. Lemonade. So for us, in order to master ourselves, we have to understand who we truly are. Cheers, cheers, Ramus. So we have to understand who we truly are. And this is why I want to touch today a little bit on the symbolism. And like I brought in there the triangle or the Holy Trinity of how to sort of, as for those of us that know, many of us are aware of Christian terms. Hey Teresa, aloha darling, aloha, here's to you, cheers as well, cheers. So I'm just kind of want to go ahead and go back to that triangle and talk about that. I even touched a little bit on the mind, but I want to focus today a little bit more on the gut, because it's our body. And this is what since I've talked about how our consciousness here, for those of us that know, in those of you that listening to my videos, you're probably at that point where you're on your self-discovery, because this is all self-discovery. For those that follow others, it's gonna get them nowhere with me. So that's just the way it's been, right? um anyway, so today I want to just touch sort of really on the very basic stuff, and how the wisdom. So we go from, and even I'm going to talk about, like, I have this book, right? um it's an encyclopedia of occultism. So there is just so much stuff in here that you guys have no idea how much information or knowledge it's collected in here. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about the wisdom, the difference between the knowledge and the wisdom, and how to wield that in this reality. Because for most of you that understand that, if you have the um, capacity to comprehend that, that there's a spiritual war going on, right? And then in this physical reality, it's a shadow reality of that spiritual war. Okay. So we have to kind of understand, as a spiritual beings, that reality that we in, just like I was saying last time in this first triangle, that our physical body is actually, it is manifested in the hell realm. Okay. But it is our vehicle that is operated here in this reality. And it is that higher mind, or mind of it all, or the most high God, that, like, the unexplainable God, or the one that mind of it all is probably the best explanation, right? is that that divine fragment of that is within you, which is the spirit of God within you, or the Father, or the spiritual sort of father, like if you want to use Christian terms, right? So, and there's a lot of those different things that talks about, even like in Bible, right? There is all these stories, how there's teaching wisdom through stories, and there's different age, we learn differently. And again, when we refer to Native American or Dene, they have this 9-year cycles, right? And then that um, kind of that go through like a wheel, right? And everything is cyclical. So the one thing that why I prefer the Nate teachings, because it's cyclical. It teaches energy. Okay. Um, anyway, and so because in this triangle there's internal and an external reality. So think of it, and is that little dot inside, that's your Holy Trinity. Okay, that's your reality. And then your external, everything in the external in this reality, which is you're in it, but you're not of it. Um, because when you're at this point, as you're incarnated here to close this cycle of abuse, you got to understand that it is you doing this not just for the past, or you do not doing this for you, you're doing this for your ancestors, and you're not doing this just for the past, for what happened in the past. No, you're not rectifying what happened in the past. What you stand is, you stand as a guardian at the gates of heaven, because you have to stand here in order for us to transform, transmute, and go through this sort of, and get out of matrix, as many would teach in current days, is how to deconstruct the matrix, is you have to go through this way of um, emotional healing. And once you heal your blood codes, and in this way you restructure your own DNA, because we have access to that, like what I mentioned last time. This is a Sophia code, or the angelic bloodlines that are here present on earth, just like Christ was able to be in physical form, because there is an angelic bloodline that present here on earth. Okay, and this is ultimately one of the biggest secrets. And so why do you guys think that most of the knowledge, right? We have things like that, but imagine this is just a list of things, that just little explanations of things that are taken from so many other different things. So here, like I mentioned, right? Uh, basement, Vatican basement, right? Why is that? Because there is different levels of accessibility to that knowledge that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is beyond that, is like knowing how to align all these three centers within us, okay? Because our heart is off balance. So when you guys, right, our heart is actually, but the chakra is here, right? So that energy is more centered within us, right, in here, than our actual physical heart. So there is always going to be that misalignment in the physical. That's why we have to align, due to what? Due to 3D being a shadow reality. And when we are in the shadow will always have angles. So this is why it is a mathematical unfolding of the reality. Okay, so because it's a shadow, it's a 3D. Um, so, and then the other path, the dark path, okay, That one, because the fallen angels have, and when you guys sort of read ancient material, we will understand that ancient knowledge, right, was hidden, right, and then it was twisted and then used against humanity. And the same thing with the symbolism. And so this is why I talk for years now, I talk about the invasion of the symbolism, just like inverting. And it talks in ancient traditions that um, the reason um, how the other side is so powerful against those of us that are pure in our nature here, right? In this reality, we're pure in the nature because in here, there's also a parasitic consciousness that exists in the shadow because it only has can exist in the shadow. It does not have a physical template. So this is why it is here to sort of this is why the fall, and this is what most people know as fallen angels, right? So I mentioned 200 bloodlines of fallen angels, right? So and what that is, and many of you know, and those even who double in Gnostic material, you will know that because of the Sophia element, that negative spectrum has to be present. So here's your Yaldabaoth. But because he's in the darkness, right, in the shadow, he cannot see. So this is where you have to be in the physical body in order to manipulate. So like for a negative forces, right? They have to have a physical vehicle in order to control humanity, right? And this is why the other side and the bloodlines that are of um Cain and Abel. Okay, so let's just look at those two different things, okay, first. But I'm going to bring something that's going to be a little bit different, and maybe some of you will disagree with me, and that's okay. But Cain and Abel's story, it's a story of fallen angels. And then of the return, because the fallen angels have a way of returning uh, to sort of to that sort of this is why in this reality we can change. Okay, so because of the Sophia element, this is not just a shadow reality, because the fragment of the divine essence is present. And so this is what in Bible talks about the Spirit of God, and then the creation without the Spirit of God. And this is why I mentioned even last time that in a certain high degrees in Freemasonry, there is at some point is going to be a ritual to where, in order to embody certain demonic entities, the fallen angel bloodline have to literally inhale a dying person last breath. Because when the last breath is inhaled, what exhales is the spirit. So they will literally inhale the last breath. They will stand over it and inhale the last breath of dying person. And that's how they can then manifest that sort of entity. Because of that spectrum that present in this reality, this is why we have everything, right? So, so today I just kind of wanted then to talk about so everything like our health, everything including our mental health, which is this center, right? It is very important because this is our spiritual center. This is our spiritual center that also, as we know from Bible, is polluted by fallen angel teachings. Possession. Yes. Definitely possession. Teresa. Um, this is part of the secret in with Masons, but just because they don't have the intellectual capacity to understand that there's just no big bag enough that they can build in order to keep this cat in this bag. It's just they're powerless against divine order. We're experiencing divine order, um, rebalancing so that quantum equilibrium on this planet can be achieved because it's all out of whack. Okay. So, um, in order for us to achieve that, right? So we have to so this is all about doing this in this vehicle that we have. And to understand this vehicle, we have to understand that there's two forces and two ways that a human being can go, right? You can take a dark path or you can take a light. Okay. So when you do that, so um for those of us, so you understand. And what is fallen angels? Fallen angels used to know all this secrets of the universe. They're still endowed with knowledge. Wisdom is gain. Knowledge is what allows people to control. Knowledge is power. So power hungry people know a lot. You know who left me this? Mason Handler wannabe left me this because that's their thing. His thing is study all this, and they have to study this. So in the once they do get into spiritual degrees, they have to study all this. So I because God works in mysterious ways, right? So of course, when I'm there and someone in is and the Mason are trying to sort of um, have me surrender everything and my power and my abilities and my gifts because they're looking for gifted people, right? So my even from the very beginning, whatever my gifts are and whatever my talents are, whatever my creative power was, that's what attracted um, Masons and all of that stuff and occultists, right? And so then when I recognize so when I see in there and then I know that nothing is um, everything in my life, and I knew that for a very long time, everything in my life that happens, it happens for a reason. And I knew that since a very young age. So I understood that there was something for me to learn. And there was so much to learn. And ultimately, what I learned is that energetically, it's always two ways. But for those that manipulate, they're just as blind themselves because um, like, in a simple way, explain that some people say you can be a street smart or you can be a book smart. A street smart individual can go and get book street smart. A book smart individual will go on the streets and they will not survive. Do you see the difference? So it's the same thing with sort of the perspective that each individual, and this is ultimately what couple um, of these journals back, I was talking about. There was lovers that came out in tarot cards, and it was one of that Ramos you mentioned. It was choice. So here's that choice, and where do you put this sort of the vehicle that you have, because we have access to both our bodies in here. Like I said, our body consciousness is infected. We're infected through genetically, because there was genetic modification to this bodies. So our bodies are genetically modified. Okay. So of course I did cards today, was very interesting. And on the bottom of the cards for spiritual meaning came out the chariot. And so in the spiritual meaning, it's literally talks about the willpower in sort of in the so this is basically what was at the core of the reading today, and this conversation today is the spiritual meaning of the chariot. And then I've got quite a bit of interesting sort of perspectives that came out, but mainly it's just I need to talk not so much about the what it is exactly, what knowledge, what wisdom is. How do people manipulate that against, in how that been manipulated in the collective consciousness? So now those of us who have the awareness, or who have the ears, the eyes to see and the ears to hear, we can speak the truth about it. And this is what, when we speak the truth about, we bring the end to the magic. And I'm talking about with the K, or magic with the G, the ones that has to do with the blood. So that's the one that we talk about, of the hot sort of that level of binding. I'm talking about spiritual binding, soul binding agreements that are made on. This is why the other side, this is why everything has to done with blood, because it's a soul binding contracts. So once you go past that, that this is when you can, um, from Lesser Key of Solomon, which is the other name that starts with G for it, but the other name for it, it's Lesser Key of Solomon. But it has two names. Lesser Key of Solomon has another name. Let me explain this, because sometimes I just say things and I don't explain to you guys, and then I listen. I'm like, oh, I should explain more. So it's I forgot, was Geishena or whatever. There's a different name for it, but it's Middle Eastern. So that's why in Masonry they study four different uh, sort of things. They study demonology, right? And then Lesser Key of Solomon, it's all sort of science of how to summon 72 demons. And some of those, then in those higher degrees, you have to do those rituals that I'm talking. Um, uh, in order to, once you do that, then that energy is trapped in a different body. So when they inhale, and then and it's trapped in like a different body. Okay. And it just like a battery. And then there's what happens, because, and remember, it has to do a lot with that um, cursing of your next 7 generations. A lot of these people, when they talk about when they sell their soul, they don't just sell their soul, because we have to understand we are representative of our ancestors. They sell the future generation. So when they do that's why they have to do the blood rituals because they sacrifice their not just themselves, and this is why they have to, in order to keep um, sort of the bloodline in that frequency at that level to where that um, the required frequency for those demonic entities, Teresa, yes, those are entities, can be manifested. Okay, because it's all about them finding a vehicle or finding a vehicle to be in. And so so that in our so our gut center, it represents our body, represents our vehicle in this reality that embodies the spirit or the mind of it all. So it's that higher mind that we actually connected through our heart to the spirit of it all. So that's why we most of us will hear, and like I mentioned from childhood, right? Like I've learned so much of the wisdom from childhood because I was so um from a very young age, for as long as I didn't care to play with another kids. I didn't care. The only activities I enjoy once in a while is playing in the snow, sometimes on the, but other than that, not really. Like my thing was art. I was doing art all of my life, so it's just me and the canvas, me and the canvas. So that was my sort of activities. But when it comes to like any other activities that I really loved, it was always I would hang out around old people because I would learn so much for them. And when I would hang around them, I would notice that they don't talk about certain things when um kids like me, very young, present in their presence. So then I learned to hide behind the bushes and things like that. But that was my activity. So this is how I kind of picked. So I'm definitely, learning things from a very young age in a very different way. Let's just say that. But and again, and then those same grandmas that tell you all these old stories about all these different things and uh like Baba Yaga, right? So this is the most those of you guys that even hear it, it even got like in all this myth and everything. So there's all these stories that we tell in so many different ways, but every grandma will tell you a story about Baba Yaga. Everybody like that was like it's at the core of that knowledge, of that cultural knowledge that they held in order to secure, right? And like with my family, the thing like with my father entrusted me with the oral history of our bloodline. So then, so it can continue because that's the tradition. That's the DNA tradition. There is no written stuff because written stuff gets stolen and then what happens? It gets inverted and then it gets used in a negative way. So then people, by having the access in this vehicle, being it infiltrated to that negative energy, this is how it gets harvested through triggering and manipulating people and creating loosh, like you mentioned, Teresa, last time. Myth Mash, you ask me what tarot card deck I am using. This is a Spirit Tarot, Tarot of the Spirit, by Pamela Eakins. Okay. This is about 20 some years old, as you can tell, very beat up book. But I wanted to read a little bit of the spiritual meaning at the core at the bottom. But you guys, sometimes I'm guided to look at more what's was at the bottom. The next one was the Fool, and I've got into the spiritual path of the Fool. So that one, and then Temperance, I haven't really got in, but um, that's been coming out a lot in the clarifiers as well. Okay. So and then last time, but this time it came out what was on the bottom, the Power was upside down. So this is why I'm kind of, want to talk about both sides of the coin to kind of so we can have a better perspective, right? Even though don't read these cards ever, they don't have upside down meanings. But I am unique. Everything is different with me. So I use these cards. Then I use Osho cards. So for a clarifier for my um, foundation today is the Source came out. So which is absolutely lovely. Um, then I do also have my gypsy cards. I don't think I ever showed them you guys, but these are the gypsy cards. I don't know if any of you know, but they have the four meaning, right, left. And the way they work, it's like when you put them out, then you have to look for the picture. And sometimes it comes like that or like that. And so when it matches, and it can match in four different directions. And this is my Russian gypsy sort of card. So this is my very sort of so a lot of I know there is gypsy cards out there that look like that, but they are also and this cards sometimes I also read them just like more originally. Different directions mean different things. So I also for all the cards I in my head I developed four different directions as well. So this is so yes, these are beautiful cards. They're a little bit too big for mine. My one of the babushkas that had these cards when I was young, she had them like small, like one-fourth of this, and they were so tiny, and but they're a little too big for mine. But I still pretty good. But anyway, and here they come with the book. Oh, and again, this book is it used to be old gold, but you can't really read it. But it is by Svetlana. I can't read her last name. It's some long Russian name. So anyway, but I only use this for this is only my individual, so I don't use this for collective. This is only for me. So I don't touch those, but they're here. So that's why, since you asked, I showed you. So that's kind of, but the way I read myth mash, the way I read cards is very different. It's my own sort of what I develop. I use it only to clarify my intuitive knowing. Okay, so that's basically. And I first a lot of times, like today, a lot of times, like last time, my whole thing, all this bunch of notes started with a triangle, and then by the end of it, I had no room. So I had to go to a next one. And it's like so, and then I do cards. So I don't I do not call any entities. Those are just my tools to help my conscious mind um, to sort things out or do the mathematical sort of order that it needs to put in for my conscious mind to understand what is happening. Okay. But most of my stuff is strictly intuition. It just is here. I just, and it's sometimes, that's why I do this lives, because I don't even know, but a lot of times it could take me all day to figure out what it is that I'm going to be talking about. And I do, like I mentioned, I don't want to waste anybody's time. So I wanted to talk on things that are important and things that are going to be valuable to others. So the source came out. The other few three cards that came out is magician, okay, mother water. And so I was talking a little bit about, and then spirit was saying because it's continuation, so it's kind of like continuation of the reading from the last time. So, and then a flame of spirit. Again, this is four of fire. Um, so, and four of fire, and if is stability, but now we're talking about fire. So this is your sort of Mm, expanding into that four directions, except in the spiritual form. So, this is why I want to talk about intuition and how that is so important. And this is what mostly in this life, and most of you can testify to this yourselves, and how many more testimonies uh, we can find today that um, how many people in their like who that uh, sort of that knowing or that wisdom from within comes at the split second whenever the right time is. And for those people that have faith into that eternity within, the answers will always come at the right time. Just like for me, when you have to trust that the higher sort of you want to call it higher mind, you want to call it your higher self, that what is still you, that you know is part of you, that because you belong to eternity. So that is still within you, and that is your driving force. That's what drives your willpower in everything you do. So you can't say, oh, this is not from uh, God, and this is, oh, it is from God. I can't be religious when I'm embodying the power of it all. How can I go and submit to some uh, three stooges like the first Masonic initiation, three stooges, and you go and you say, yeah, I'm going to die over here, and you three stooges resurrect me. When you embody eternity within, and you understand what it entails, right? The chariot, okay? That's your vehicle, okay? So, the chariot is the vehicle of the force of spirit. A vehicle carries, conveys, or expresses, in this case, the human personality. At the chariot, it is a vehicle for expression. The human body is also a vehicle. It is a vehicle of the spirit. Personality and body both contain and limit the way you conceive and present yourself internally and to the universe. Okay, so here's sort of there is a way you know yourself. You classify yourself according to this type. So basically, your personality now, having that higher knowledge or having the wisdom of who you are, right? Now, when you are like, there's some things, there's stories, and there's stories um, of mothers in the time where their baby is in danger. I've read a story. There was a woman where the baby was under the car, and she moved the car to get to her baby. She moved the car by herself. In that moment, where did that force, where did that will force came from for her to do that? It came from within. She didn't go look up and call 70 and conjure up and do ritual and do all that to gain some power. Don't need to do that. Needed to be aligned to mind of it all so it can work through her, right? So then the body, so imagine that in that moment, she didn't need to think just with this. That intuitive force in a split second, that love for her child that is held in her heart activated everything in her, the force that she could never comprehend with this mind in the normal state was there. It came through the love for the child. So this is why I talked about, and this is unconditional love of the mother for the child that gives her the power to literally move the car that weighs a ton. Yes, Joanne, super source within. So for my magician, you guys, I wanted to show you, but the guilt came up again. And the reason for that is because I have to talk a little bit about the Vedico. This is the card for me of the Vedico disease. This is a Vedico spirit because because like last time I said, this center, which I will probably next time maybe or we'll see what how things will go. We'll talk about our spiritual center, but right now I want to and this is why I even bring up cards, and because you can develop like any shaman out there. If you read about shamans, develop your own tools of how to align everything into this order to where you do not where you heal yourself and you do not get into this state of being due to having the external forces operating you. So ultimately, this is why we say our health is our God. What you eat is who you are. And so when you speak your spiritual being in existence. You speak your humanity into existence. You speak your future bloodline into existence. So why do you think, um, most of the people, and I said religious people, would like to be the middlemen? Why? Because they need the vehicle for because this spirit wants to possess a vehicle. It doesn't need a spiritual center to be aligned to the intuition. It needs to be in this way. This is why it even clarify the magic, because here I want to talk about negative magic, blood magic. Okay. Yay, Ramus. The dance on the fine line. So this is basically, and so this is what you do. Who controls your spiritual center? Is this the cannibalistic spirit, or is this your fragment of mind of it all incarnated in this through all these timelines, through all these dimensions, through all this came down through where is this? Through a nine spiritual levels, right? So here's the 9 spiritual levels and spiritual beings. So principalities, archangels, and angels on the lowest order. Archangels and angels. Here's your fallen angels on the other side of the coin. Principalities. That's the lowest order. So I'll come back to it because that's the order again of this Holy Trinity that we're going to talk about it. But so the other thing is I want to talk about a little bit about esoteric qualities of the card chariot. Okay. So the astrological attribution is Cancer, okay, which is nourishment. All right. So the body, so it's all about body in order to nourish your all of your, including spirit. Your spirit you can nourish through the body as well. Um, Essence. Okay, esoteric essence. The personality is the vehicle for ascent and descent and change of perspective for a new field of view. So this is basically again, so this is what I want to talk a little bit about it, the essence of this card, right? So at the essence, it is change, which is continuation from last times, which came out Wheel of Fortune, and the confirmation came again Wheel of Fortune, which is change, right? So it came as change. So it continues, and so this is basically that re-equalizing your or rebalancing your whole being, okay? Intelligence, okay, quality. Intelligence of the house of influence. In the physical body, we are the actor, and the means of action. So it's everything. It's complete full spectrum in you becoming sort of on the top of the you're catapulted to the top of the wheel in a way. Okay. And then the veil. The veil is true knowledge is blocked by stopping the inquiry at the symbol. Symbolism represents spirit, but is not spirit. So this is what I want to talk about it. And I've talked about symbolism extensively in the past. So, but this is where it represents spirit, just like what I talked about. Dene people talk about the waves, and then now we know about that toroid field that we have, right? Those are just two uh, different vortexes of energy, the same way our hearts are. So we have vortexes of energy that are going around our field, and those are two different spirals. We have the natural spiral that goes down into the earth that is counterclockwise. So that's it's in the Merkaba field, which is a flipped inside down circle in order to harvest that energy. So, but I'm not going to get off track because I'm almost at 1 hour. Okay, so the veil is okay, so intelligence is, no, the veil is that the symbolism represents spirit, but is not spirit. It's just representation. Okay, so and a lot of symbolism. So again, imagine how something that can only represent something, how many meanings can it be attached? Because what it means behind it, you can slip anything because it's not spirit. Just because the symbol is there doesn't mean spirit. You can slip anything else underneath there, and that's how they do it. Okay. And then the mystery is Form acts as limitation, but it is not. It is protection. Form is a ring, pass not, a finite field of activity in which the force of spirit resides. New force will dissolve old forms. So, this is about dissolving old forms. This is the creative process. You are the creative force. So that sort of your driving force behind you, and you understand that to in order to alchemize any energy, you have to have the body, and you have to have emotional body, or you have to have the heart field, or that field through which you can transmute and transform energy. And that's our heart, through love. And this is how we get pulled that. But in the body, right, like I mentioned last time, in our gut center, we have access to chi, or to universal energy, or to the sun within. And this is that cord, that invisible cord that still holds you to the sun energy, right? So um, this is pretty much, I'm almost at 1 hour. So it's kind of interesting. I haven't even started. It's already been 1 hour on the gut, on the gut center. And so, then for my mother water and for a fire, I got, it was kind of weird because I got more cards, and two for each came out, which was very interesting. Um, for mother water, which is, I was talking about the water element and what it has to do with the quantum leap, and in ushering the quantum age in, which is the Aquarian age, which is a quantum age. This is a death card in regular tarot card. This is a transformation. So on a spiritual level, of course, it's transformation. So like we were saying, all forms must be transformed, and new forms must be built. So now new thought forms, meaning new vision. Remember how new vision kept coming up in the past, and then new vision and consciousness. So we have to, so this is your quantum leap, and how we're leaping, and what I was talking about, the element of water and what it means, and how it has dualistic form, right? It could be in what is that? Hot water, what is that? When it just rises. What is that? And then ice, all the way to ice, right? So anyway, it's funny, the water thing, you guys, it's funny. So it's consciousness. Like, let's just talk about little leaping consciousness. Let's do it. So we're going to leap in consciousness, which is going to be very funny, because it's going to be, once we get to the point, at some point where humanity is going to realize, it's going to come out, that when the state of water, so when you guys look at the glaciers, right, ice, right, um and a lot bigger ice are in the water, right, and the one above, and there is above ice, right. So there's water, right, and it expands a little bit when it's ice, and then it will contract. But because ice also have air particles. But this is the funny thing. So here's the quantum leap in consciousness. So when you actually, so for those of the freaks that talk about, worried about the glaciers melting and our ocean will rise, let me tell you, it's all about weight, right? When you actually melt that ice, will be exact form of that inside, and the air from it as it melts will escape. And so the top part of that is just how much air is in the whole glacier. When it escapes, the amount of water is going to be it's not going to affect, it will not go 1 inch because the ice floats and has just the amount of sort of the space, takes up space within the ocean, just exact same weight as it can hold the water, just like it was water. So when it melts, it will just melt into water. And the only thing that might escape is some air that been trapped in there for who knows how long. So imagine how stupid all those people that scream, oh, when the glaciers are melt, we're all gonna drown. Because they don't know basic physics. They don't know basic physics. When the glacier melts, the water level's not gonna change. Anyway, leap in consciousness, and then I got a fool for four of spirit and the miser. So again, here's your two sides. Okay, so here this card just, I mean, it represents the Vedico. This is the spirit of Vedico. I mean, look at that money. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Look at that. So, and as I was saying, right? So because of so in any way, so that's it for cards, and the source, as I said, was on the bottom. But what it actually kind of helped me to understand is that it really is gonna and the way we're gonna align it is in the way our ancestors are gonna help us is like even everything that I've learned in childhood, it is useful to me right now in order for me to understand what it is that I need to do so I can do the best that I can, so my future ancestors could be proud of me today. So when they look back that I did everything that I could in order to heal myself and heal our all our three centers in this body while we're here incarnated in here. Okay. And so we can respect ourselves. And like I explained before, the power that this that we have and self-love is the greatest form of love, because like I just explained, the mother that moved the car to save her child had that power to do so in this reality due to the fact that she was able to operate on that love for her child. Your love, self-love, when you develop self-love, and like it says in the chariot, it's unbreakable. Like your body is your protection, because when you develop that self-love, when you respect yourself as that part of, when you accept yourself, your universal inheritance of who you are as a universal being, when you accept that, it becomes your protection in this reality, because you won't allow anything to penetrate. And so it is very important, because we can in this body align to that Holy Trinity and be active and be that God self in sort of in presence here, knowing that you are in the matrix and knowing the self. And so, and knowing that you're in it, but you're not of it. And that's the key to your sort of to your power. And so, and then trusting that every experience you experience, that's your spirit of it all is driving force. So the levers that even like all of this 9 levels of spiritual right beings, everything is aligned within your being. So then the future, and you can stand there as the guardian of the future, as the sort of in that angelic presence in all the levels. So, and we can do that in these bodies, and that's why we're here, just like Christ incarnated to do that from that time. And now we're here to do that in our own way. Um, in each of and every one of us has their own inheritance that we also have, that our ancestors left for us here within our blood. This is runs through our blood. And like again, the latest development um, uh, of that, the heart has its own field, and now the heart is one muscle rolled in two vortexes, one counterclock down and one clockwise. And so, and then it is blood that actually runs the heart, that pumps the heart, actually. So what I meant to say, that once we develop, or once we know the self, or when we achieve that state of Christ consciousness, right? And we accept our cosmogenetics, and we activate that cosmogenetics, or we don't, we understand, or we sort of tune into that 97% junk DNA, and we attune to that, and then we attune our bodies to that, and we respect our bodies here, because we respect the ancestors that came before us, and now we respect ancestors that will come after us, because you carry that water. Your body is 70% water. Your blood holds the blood code. Your DNA is your ancestors. That's your ancestral codes. And so when you love the self, and this is what, again, science said, that the unconditional love and the self love is stronger 400 times than unconditional love. So imagine the kind of field you have when you develop that self love. And the only way to develop it is to know the self. So when you know the self, this is when you love who you are on the inner planes. And so, Joanne, thank you so much. You said you're so nice to hear you talk. Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully, with me talking, you guys can get a little bit more of what I'm trying to convey here. How important it is for us, in order to be this divine beings of, and the representatives of our divine ancestors. Divine ancestors, because we do have in this, like I mentioned, we have the other side as well, but we are of the divine spark. For those of us that do have that spirit of the divine ancestors within us, this is how we pull the wisdom from within. And so now, knowing that it's, even scientists now say that it's 400 times stronger power. So imagine, you can move mountains. No one and nothing can penetrate your field. You don't need protection, like I was saying. When all the witches and all these warlocks were coming in, I was trying to do all kinds of things. I was going, hey, bitches, go stand in line. There's a whole line to do all kinds of weird stuff. And don't forget, my ancestors got this shit on autopilot. I don't need to protect myself from anything. Go ahead, come into my house. Oh, you want to hang off of my door frame? Go ahead. I'm like, oh, you're a big girl hanging off that door frame. Oh, and those black spots on your face. Okay. That's all I'm gonna do about it. I'm gonna laugh about it. It's gonna be entertaining for me, because my ancestors got that on autopilot. It goes back to where it comes from. because my self-love is what protects me. I'm not afraid of some kind of demon that someone conjure up by killing a chicken. Supposed to be afraid of that? Am I supposed to be afraid of that? I mean, I'm there is more to it, but just that there's people so because that's all they know. Um, it is what it is. So anyway, for 1 hour. But anyway, you guys, we're gonna continue this because it's gonna become so clear to us what is what, and eventually, we're gonna get to the point of where I'm going to talk about how our chakra system was also all messed up. It's all genetics. Genetic manipulation had a lot to do um, with our heart center. So when it comes time, and this is why I want to talk about heart center the last, and next I'm going to be talking a little bit more about our center here and the Holy Trinity, and not just pineal gland, but pituitary and thalamus. Thalamus or thalamus. There is three glands in the body here that we that sort of give us that connects us. It's a cycle, so connects us emotional, body, physical, and higher mind together too, and it's right here. So the spirit is where everything comes in here in this body. It spiritual comes together, and then through our heart is that with the energy we express as who we are on that cosmic level, who we are, or that. So this is why we even have the capacity, pituitary gland and thalamus. Yes, Ramus, pineal, pituitary, and thalamus. The reason why occultists um, talk mostly about pineal because that's the one they found a way to interfere, and that's the one they have access to. So that's why they talk about pineal because but it's all different talk about that. So yes, so that's why Teresa, exactly, it's on autopilot because once you develop self-love, meaning you accept who you are on that cosmic level, um, you're untouchable. You're untouchable on any of that demonic sort of things. Um, because what is happening is you owning um, all of that energy. And so you're immediately alchemizing through that higher awareness. Because as soon as you anchor that higher awareness within you of who you are, so that's how you can develop self love. And then no matter what comes at you, and this is the other thing, like many of us now learn about narcissists, right? So when we truly start understand what narcissists are, is because they literally can develop self-love. And this is where the problem lies with them because they don't, because it's all stems from not from being having the mask on of this or that. Why? Because there's nothing of value underneath. So it's like value. So with self-love, um, imagine in order to gain self-love, you got to accept yourself as a cosmic being. So it's so that devaluing technique now in order for any structure of control, be it religious, be it political, right, be it physical, right, anything doesn't sort of um it's just like it's the very opposite of it. Okay, and so that's why they say that, like, spirit of Christ, when they were sacrificing in spirit, he was laughing at them, saying, they don't know what they do. Like he was saying in that life, they don't know what they do in sort of, because they don't have access to, um because what had happened is, that fallen bloodlines, right? They have access to, uh they can only milk it, uh, through, angelic bloodlines, because they, by their fall, they disconnected themselves from the true source. Um, right. You said narcissists is just empty, black box, and then they develop all these personalities, um, that because, why? To, put some value on themselves, because they don't have the value. It stems all from, satanic abuse, and because it's so prevalent in this world, religious abuse, has a lot to do with it. Like in Catholic Church, in most of the Christianity, except probably mystic Christianity, um, most of the people start with what? Devaluing human being. In order to become Christian, you have to devalue and, be all sinful and stuff. So, in order to be Christian, right? With the religious structure. So that's actually spirit of Antichrist, because Christ said that in order to come, through that, hole in the needle, Teresa, I keep forgetting what it's called. And in order to pass into heaven, you have to be like a child. You have to have the faith of the child. You have to have the trust of the child. You have to have the love, unconditional love that the child has. But the spirit of Antichrist flip that, and then what happens in our churches today? The children are immediately abused, spiritually abused, and they're told that they're not good enough for God. Imagine the kind of trauma it inflicts on an innocent child that is still in that state, in an angelic state. And that's trauma, trauma, trauma. Only through trauma you can sort of have control over other spirits. So, and this is why, um, sort of occultists are everywhere, right, Teresa? They're everywhere. Look at all the teachings, look at everything. And before we have now kind of free press with I mean, YouTube is trying, they're trying to, but they can't, the cat is out of the bag, right? In the past, I just came across, this was very interesting. I came across this one, documentary series, documentary filmmaker, and, a story about a documentary that he made in 1992, and what a big war it was. Even the Congress got in, and they actually, um, I mean, even the Supreme Court got in, and they banned his documentary from being released, um, in United States of America. So I was doing a little research. I have the needle, Teresa. Yeah. So I was doing a little bit research, but anyway, in order, so, but anyway, and they banned and everything, and he couldn't release his documentary, um, in United States of America, because it was banned, and it got banned, and Supreme Court said no, you can, no, it actually happened the other way around. Eventually it went to Supreme Court, and 20 or 30 years later it did got released, but it was just only they said only for, educational purposes only, and they only released it to a couple of, universities. But, I will talk about it a little bit more in, later, but, um, right now that cannot happen. Anybody can put, release a video out there. So, we can see how things are changing. So even from 20 years ago, right? When the media, and this is why I talk about the media, once the justice level, I'm going to be talking a lot about the media. And then the third level, there's going to be um, intelligence agency. So the media had sort of, and then occultism, like even in here, stolen land, stolen inheritances, and all of that stuff, and the religious abuse that happened, all that, everything, and most of it is held all by occult. So it's all out there, flooding, flooding, flooding. Why? Because they rather you, when you're on awakening, immediately attached to their false teachings. Because if you're searching out there, so you can attach, and they'll have all kinds of flavors for you, just to trap you in back into feeding that system. And so, just the same way, a narcissist will come back and always, feed and feed and feed on emotions. Why? Because they have lack of empathy. So they don't have the energy. Same thing with the fallen bloodlines. They don't have access to that divine fragment. The only access they have is to the copy of our divine fragment, quantum copy. That's their third strand DNA. So that's basically, I'm going to end this, but just want to close this out with so basically, your intuitive center is your gut center. And this is how you develop that alignment through all this center. And once I'm going to talk about that, then the heart will automatically on the autopilot aligns once we sort of align the duality, because our job here and or our responsibility, not a job, our responsibility in the body here to align those two centers, and that action is what puts our heart, or that sort of alignment to the then cosmic heart in a way. So anyway, thank you so much. I know these subjects are a little bit difficult, you guys, but I am doing my best. Okay, just to talk about it in a way that is empowering to each and every one of you, and it's giving you encouragement to yes, it is a dynamic duo, is a narcissist and a hayoka. And the hayoka is basically the narcissist's worst nightmare, because then this is the capacity to project or mirror. And this is where it was really, I really got to learn about this, Teresa, with the with the handler wannabe. Oh, that one, I really got to practice on that one. Mirroring and projecting, mirroring, projecting. But it got to the point to where it was like, it was natural. It was natural, in a way, and I was like, just let it go. But that's also, it's their worst nightmare, because they can never really hook you. If you are fully, you might make them feel or think that they can't feel. So you can only, by mirroring or projecting, you can only sort of, you can only get them confused in their own thinking. They get lost in their own little things that they built. narcissist. And for Hayoka, it's like natural. It comes natural. And so when that dynamic comes, it's that's typically an explosive situation because there's so much energy for Hayoka to transmute in that. So then learning process can happen, and that sort of that raising in frequency can happen because Hayoka is here to transmute, transform. And so this is like our responsibility to do so. So narcissist is like, come on, babies. Come on, let's see what you made of, and let's see what how much fun I can have with you. So basically, anyway, and so you guys, let's just enjoy ourselves while we're doing this. This is all shadow work on the collective level, so we gotta have a little fun with it. It's all gonna be, when we laugh, we heal. So let's have a few laughs, Teresa. I so agree. Let's have a few laughs. Thank you so much, you guys, for your kind words and your kind comments. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Aloha. Love you all so much. Thank you. Until next time. Vino Friday, I think. Bye, everyone. Stay wild. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye.